I'm going to bring in a sheet of words you can learn to use. All right. On becoming an adult. And I think I'm interested in those two because they give us an example that we can use, everyone sitting right here in this classroom. Now, on becoming an adult, he gives an example of, it's a ritual. And he speaks about a ritual. And in every society, regardless of where you are in any given society, there are rituals in which young folk move from childhood into adulthood. Even here in the United States. I'm going to speak about that in a minute. The notion is that he talks about the mask. And how in New Guinea there's the young boy who no longer is listening to his mother. You know how that goes. And she calls in one of the men from the tribe. This is ritualistic. It happens throughout the tribe society. It is a given because we know in growing up, we have all been 12, 13, 14, yes? Mm-hmm. Many of us have gotten to that point where when we become teenagers, we feel as if our parents don't know anything. You understand? Some might suggest it is the norm. It is not unnormal. It is normal for young people to then begin to question, because that's really what you are doing. You are questioning your identity. You are questioning where you stand in the tribe. You are questioning your authenticity. Now, in the beginning, they have a process, ritual. Young boys are brought up to fear the mask. But mothers then call in the tribal man. He comes in with his mask. Boy has to fight the mask. The man in the mask. And Campbell tells us that the man fights him, but he allows him to win. And when this young boy wins, it says to that given society, there in New Guinea, this young boy is no longer a boy. He is a man now, because the mask represents power. The mask represents authority. The mask says, once you beat me, now you are a man in this society, so therefore being a man, you have all of the responsibility of manhood. It means that in this tribe, when other warring factions come, if families need food and the men have to go out and get the food, kill the animals, you will now be a part of that manhood tribal group. Because you have faced your fears in the mask, you understand? You faced it. You fought it. You conquered it. You won. So now throughout this indigenous group, you are a winner and you are now a man. And then he speaks to the notion of us here in the United States, some might suggest. when our young men, our young boys become 12, 13, 14, no longer want to listen. And he speaks about our society because we nurture. They lean on us, women. We grow them into maturity. But then there comes a time in our society in which men, boys, have to step up and become responsible. And he gives an example. He says when you go to college and you're working on your PhD, and when you're working on your PhD, it's all individual study. And he says when you look at that dissertation, to read it and to approve it, and you look down at the bottom at those footnotes, the person who has the most authority, the person who knows the work, so much so that they have perhaps a few footnotes, but the bottom of the page is not crowded with footnotes, because your footnotes say, I use this person as a guide, but the majority of my paper is my own voice. You understand? That's what he's talking about. I know my work so well that I don't have to fill my paper with a lot of quotes from someone else. Quote, jumping off point, your own voice. You're an adult. You speak in your own authority. You claim your voice. You are your authentic self when you can do that. Now, I think in the beginning of the semester I may have spoken about it. In our culture, in the African American culture, and especially in the church, you have organizations and groups in which you have young women and young boys go through a certain tutorial period. Anybody familiar with Reverend Youngblood's church in Brooklyn? No? Okay. All right. He has a rite of passage for young boys who live, they're in Bed-Stuy, and they really come from all areas of Brooklyn. It is a period of a year and a half. And for a year and a half, quite similar to what Malentz does. He takes these boys off the street. He takes these boys sometimes who are not in the street, but are not sure, certain of what they want to do in their life, and they may be on the fringe of making the wrong choices. What he does, and what other churches are following in their example, they pair these young boys, young men, up with adult men. You understand? And for a year and a half, you have a male role model who is mentoring these young men. Then at the end of the year and a half, they have a ceremony. It's a candlelit ceremony. I've been to a few of them, in which throughout the ceremony, the men have to learn how to do certain things, and they do it. And then at the end of the ceremony, they are awarded their manhood status. You understand? It's a whole big thing, a dinner, it's a banquet, et cetera, et cetera. Many of the black churches are doing this, you understand? For men, and also they're now doing it for women, because you have some women who are also somewhat lost. Now, one might suggest that it is a necessary part of transitioning from childhood into adulthood to have these rituals. It is something that the young person, if you will, can look forward to. They know it's coming. You understand? Now, the boy with the the mask, he knows eventually he's going to have to fight the mask. It is spoken about quietly, boys to boys. Do you follow? They know they're going to have to go through this. So the expectation is when that young boy goes through it, it's clear to him. It's clear in his consciousness. I have passed the test. Do you understand that? And how it is necessary? Okay. Now, let me move into following your bliss. Did I speak about following the bliss? Okay. All right. It's about passion. It's about being on the path. It's about knowing within your spirit what you were meant to do and your purpose here in this earth. All right? Following your bliss. Is that clear? Okay. All right, let's go on next group. Okay, wait. No, okay, come on. All right. Go ahead.
So we did Joseph Richardson's Life and Vision.
Okay.
For his personal story, government soldiers had surrounded his village and asked that each elder chose to pick one child to go to school. And later on, he received a scholarship to study in the U.S. And he lived in a parallel world, both in nomadic life and in the United States. Therefore, using his knowledge from the United States, he helped the community back in Kenya. And his mother lived in a compound hut. None of his brothers went to school, but he was educated. Therefore, he was a perfect example of the real journey.
So some of his accomplishments were that he won a scholarship to St. Lawrence University. He attended Harvard, worked as a writer and history teacher. He was named a National Geographic Explorer, and he won a parliamentary seat in 2006 by-election in Kenya.
So for the elders story and what we reinforce, when intruders came into the village, everyone rushed to pack their belongings to leave. However, there was a blind man who was strong and a weak man who didn't have any legs, but he could see very far. So the rest of the village left them behind because they thought they were slowing them down. But instead of staying at the village and being targets, they put their knowledge together to find their way to leave the village. The blind man who could run, the blind man who was very strong, he put the weak man on his back, and they left the village, leaving all of the villagers behind. This gives the notion that people helping others in their community, if everyone works together, they can become better.
Alright, so the one that I've chosen is Optimus Hero's Journey. So pretty much he said everything about how he went on his journey, and he was basically just brought up in poverty, and he went through his accomplishments, and he bettered himself by going to Harvard University, became a U.S. History teacher to educate his high school students, and he learned from his experience, which had molded and shaped him to the man he is today. Because of his experience, of his journey, he realized, because of his experience of this journey and his experience of his bad living condition, he wants to give back to the community. So he goes about giving back to the community by bringing clean water to drink, scholarships, and all the lack of natural resources that his country didn't have, basically he gave back. Sorry about that. So he has gained power and knowledge through his journey, and this became a valuable lesson to him. And in life, in my opinion, you step out your comfort zone and you don't know where life can basically take you.
Good. Clap. Thank you.
Oh, I have art.
Okay. Something I need to say, I want to make sure that you understand. In Joseph Lucaden Rite of Circumcision Ceremony, Kenya, Joseph Lucaden is telling the story. They have allowed him to come into the village to photograph everything because remember, Joseph Lucaden is a Maasai warrior. Remember, Joseph Lucaden has gone through this circumcision ceremony himself. Joseph Lucaden is familiar. These are his people. And remember, we talked about early on, when folks trust you, they share. Because this ceremony, we didn't see all of the graphic parts, which is a good thing, but we saw enough, you understand. We saw more than, if I walked into that village, they would never allow me to see what we saw. Do you follow? Because they trust him. They know him. They allowed him to do this. Remember, the individual, the young man who's going through the circumcision is Joseph Ledo, L-E-D-O, not Joseph Lucaden. Is that clear? Joseph Lucaden is telling the story through photography of Joseph Ledo. All right. Also, when we talk about his life, Joseph Lucaden's life, make sure that you include the time that he spent in West Virginia teaching. Because remember, he taught for 7 or 8 years social studies to junior high school students. That's important because it's during this point in time that he makes the statement in order to build bridges with people of different cultures, you have to cross bridges. That means sometimes you have to go across the diaspora. You have to go across continents. You have to go across the waters. And that's exactly what he did in his teaching. He brought the students from West Virginia to Kenya. And in doing that, he opened up their eyes. Because the students he was bringing from West Virginia, dominant culture, were moneyed students. Do you understand? Coming from an affluent area. And they said, after going back and forth, cross those bridges. What can we do to help you? They came back with a passion. It wasn't just him. They came back. And then they started doing all of the things that young people do. You know, you've been in junior high and high school when you had projects where you had to raise money, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, etc. Cookie drives, dinners. They did what they needed to do. And in doing that, they helped him build schools. In doing all of that, raising the money, they helped buy books. In doing that, they helped to buy uniforms. Do you understand? They helped to build wells, water, infrastructure. That's what it's all about. motivation. He said, and I like this, and I think I may have said it before, I'm going to say it again. The story of each one helped one. The man who cannot see and the man who cannot walk. There is a reason behind that tale. And the notion is that it's a true tale, it's a true story. Because that's what happens when you have tribal war. Only the strong survive in real life. You follow me? So when they said we're going to leave you behind, you have no legs and you can't see, that's real. Happens every day in those areas in which there is tribal war. But these two men came together, and I love this. The one who couldn't see said, my legs are strong, I can walk. And the one who, wait a minute, the one who couldn't see, and the one who could see said, I can see far. Do you follow? They helped each other. And that's the point that we have to understand when we talk about this. Because when you learn cultures and when you learn about other people, there is no, this is relevant to today, in our world. We don't have to build a bridge. You understand? We don't have to be afraid because someone is of a different religion. Do you follow? This is serious. A different culture. There is no fear when you know people as you are learning about one another in this room. Because everybody is from somewhere. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you become friends, or even not even a friend, but an acquaintance of someone, when you know you can sit at a desk and you can say, I don't understand that. Do you understand that? And you can share with one another. That's why I like to break people up. I don't like people who are the same together all the time. No, you become a crutch. So you have to mix and mingle folks. Do you follow? And this is exactly what happened. This is what happened so that today, those of us who are educated and who read, yes, understand and know that our leaders should be doing the same thing. All of you who are scholars know that you should be looking at what's happening in the world, because what happens in the world affects you and will affect you and yours, not today, but tomorrow. Okay? All right. Next group. Where are we? Yes. I don't have an extra one. Here's the one I gave you. But you were not here Tuesday, when I gave it out prior to Tuesday. So you should have it. Do me a favor, do you have it?
Yeah, you gave it on Tuesday.
Take a picture of it. Or you can come to my office, across the street, African American Studies, 6th floor. All right. I'm ready when you are. But one thing I have to say. Motivating force. Hear me out, bear with me. Motivating force. I want to make sure you understand that. The elder's story, when the elder comes to Joseph Lucatin, and time has passed, you understand? He's been in the United States, and he goes back to Kenya. Then he comes back to the United States. Then he goes back to Kenya. Then he comes back and forth. And he's doing this over a period of several years. Finally, the elder, this is the motivating force now, tells him the story, and the notion is that there is an aha moment. The light bulb goes on for Lucatin. And he says, after hearing the story of the man with no legs, and then the elder says, "You are our eyes. You've been out there, you have seen. We are your legs. We're helping you to walk throughout this world, United States, Kenya. We're doing for you." What are you going to do for us? You get it? When he says, "What are you going to do for us?" Then Joseph makes a conscious, the Sachi, Ananda, consciousness raised. I gotta go home. Motivating force. Okay.
Alright, so I'm gonna start off with change your channel, Malas, Bart Williams. So, Swimmingly is located in the richest continent of the world, and basically.
Okay, wait. What are you doing?
You got change your channel, Helen Smart Williams.
All right. You don't have to read it. Look at me. By now, you don't have to read. You have talked. You have done your own personal homework. You know the story. Speak it.
Alright, so,
There you go.
basically she changed, like, the young people who lived in her country, she changed their whole life. She brought, like,
No, first start with Worldview of Africa.
Okay, so they're in Sierra Leone, which is, Africa is one of the richest continents in the world. So they're blessed with like cocoa, coffee, all the natural things. But after the war, with their war that happened, the kids were on the street. Like, there were a bunch of street kids. So she took them in and basically trained them to be creative. Like, they were already creative, but she like showed them more of the creative side. So since she's a creative, she helped build them up, and because of that, they got to create art. They started using their resources, like their African prints, and they were making shoes, apparel, and they went from, well, now they have a store in Paris. So she helped build these street kids up a lot. She became a mentor to them, a person who was there for them. They had no guidance. They had, just her, because after the Civil War, they were on the street. So what you're
Let
saying
me
is just,
stop a minute. No. Worldview of Africa. In the beginning of that narrative, she is kicking the tail of those people who are sitting in that audience. You understand? They are very uncomfortable. Do you see that? Did you realize that? You should have felt it. Because when I watched it, I felt it. You understand? I saw dominant culture look next to the woman who's sitting next to him, to see the reaction. Worldview of Africa, she is telling them, listen, we need to stop and think a minute about Africa. She says we have all of these natural resources. We have gold, diamonds, oil. We have people, today's slave market, that you folks are working in the mines for a pittance of nothing. You pay us nothing to do the hard work. All of these conglomerates are coming into Africa. The contracts, everything that we are signing is not giving us equal pay, and she rattles off the names of the companies that are taking advantage of the African people. World debt, she says, that you were saying we now have to pay. World view of Africa, that's what